Welcome to Kill Shots. First example, pawn to h6 attacks the queen. If queen captures the pawn on h6, queen takes h6. Then the move is pawn captures knight on c3. And the kill shot after white recaptures is knight takes pawn on f3. This removes the defense from the e4 knight. And let's say white plays king captures knight, then queen captures knight on e4 with check. And after king f2, then queen to g2 is checkmate. Chess Assassin presents Kill Shots. Knowing what to do in the final stage of a chess game is just as important as anything else. This is a winning endgame for white. Let me give you a very basic endgame principle. If you're up material, trade off pieces. Why? Because a material advantage will become more significant the less pieces there are on the board. And on the other hand, if you are down in material, you trade off pawns. This will decrease your opponent's winning chances. And it will give you the opportunity to sacrifice your last piece for his extra pawn. Probably the best play that black has in this game is to try and get the king centralized and walking the king toward e4 square. Okay, after black plays king to e4 attacking the rook will go to the 6th rank where it will fork both pawns. And put this in your notes. Pawns are people too. In this position, white's king has no business being on the g4 square. How does black exploit the position of white's king? Then pawn captures knight on e3, and after the capture of the knight, then queen to f5 is check. Exchange sacrifice. Bishop captures queen on f5. And the final blow is e captures f5, checkmate.
Now, you're probably wondering what a kill shot is. A kill shot is basically a decisive blow that ends the game. White will demonstrate what to do in a position like this.
In this position, black has already castled to the king's side. And in this position, black's king is stuck in the center. Well, in either case, white will initiate an attack on the king's side. This stems from the Alekhine defense. And after e4, knight f6, e5, knight to d5, c4, knight b6. Then we have c5, knight hops back to d5, bishop c4, and now the pawn moves to e6 to secure the knight. Knight c3, knight captures on c3, d takes c3, opening the bishop up on c1, knight c6, bishop f4 to protect the e5 pawn, bishop c5, and now queen g4. This is the beginning of the kingside attack. Pawn to g5, bishop takes g5, and now rook g8, knight to h3, bishop to e7, and pawn to f4. And now the tactical shot for black is knight captures pawn on e5. And after the recapture on e5, bishop takes g5, and now queen h5. Rook g7 to protect the f7 square. White castles, and now after b6, do you see the key moment for white? The tactical shot for white. The move is rook captures pawn on f7. Bishop e3 check. What is the move for white? King over to f1 loses to rook captures rook with check. Take the moves back. The correct move is a discovery by retreating the rook to f2, blocking the check, and after king e7, the move is queen to f3, and now bishop takes f2 check, followed by knight captures bishop on f2. I know you've probably heard this saying before, but the king is a fighting piece. Well, especially in this game example, the king on g6 is making its way up the board, but will take the g file as a root. The idea is to get the king in front of the rook in order to block the potential checks by white. So king to back to g7, and now the next move is king to g4. The king holds the pawn, and the rook on g7 stops any potential checks by white. King to g2. And now do you see the key moment for black? The move is knight takes f2, sacrificing the knight. King captures knight on f2, and now king h3. Followed by bishop g1. And rook to g2 is check. King moves.
Now you see that black is down in material. Now notice how black goes after pawns.
Even white having the extra piece is no match for black's position of king and rook on the 7th rank. And here the pawn on e3 falls. And after a few more moves, black went on to win. Now let's examine this next position. In this game, white uses a tactic called deflection. The first step is to get rid of one of black's pawns. Pawn to c3, but black replies with pawn to d3, attacking the rook on e2. And this of course leads to checkmate after rook to e8 check. And what this does, it opens the the d1 to h5 diagonal. Rook captures rook on e8. And after the capture, queen to g4. Queen to g4 is the only move for white here. The move to play is queen to g6, but it doesn't matter because in either case, for example, queen captures queen on g4 leads to knight f6, checkmate. And the other move, if black plays queen to g6 to block the check, the result is the same after knight f6, checkmate, and cannot be captured because the queen on g6 is pinned. In this final example, I'm going to show you attack and counterattack from the opening. White will attack black, and black will defend and counterattack. For example, knight f3, pawn to f5, pawn to e4. Black accepts the gambit. And now knight to g5, pawn to d5, pawn to d3, queen to d6, d takes e4, h6, queen h5 check. This explains black's move of the queen to d6. g6 is now possible. Queen h4, and now bishop to g7 threatens to win the knight on g5. Now knight f3 and bishop f6, another tempo move. Pawn to e5, in between move. Bishop takes e5, knight c3, bishop f6, and now queen to a4 check, c6, bishop f4. The queen holds the bishop, and now queen e6 is check. White interposes with the bishop, preparing to castle. Knight d7, rook d1, queen f7, and white castles. King f6, knight b1, e5, bishop g3, knight e7, pawn to c4, pawn to e4, knight d4, knight b6 hits the queen, and queen a5. King g7. And both sides have equal chances. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for my next video.